it might be time to find an actual message, maybe even a new leader in Congress, one who doesn't embody the attitudes of the richest zip code in San Francisco.
You think Nancy Pelosi is more toxic than Donald Trump?
You know what? The honest answer is, in some areas of the country, yes, she is.
It's clear that I think across the board in the Democratic Party, we need new leadership. It's time for a new generation of leadership in the party.
Nancy Pelosi was a great speaker. She is a great leader, but her time has come and gone. I believe that she is not the leader for the future of the Democratic Party.
Oh, nonsense, says Pelosi. She describes herself as a remarkably impressive leader, despite a half a decade of uninterrupted defeats.
So you want me to sing my praises? Is that what you're saying? Why should I? Well, I'm a master legislator. I am a strategic, politically astute leader. I am my leadership is recognized by many around the country, and that is why I'm able to attract the support that I do.
Did you hear that? It sounds like an SNL sketch.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Doggone it, people like me. But the question remains, do Democrats need a new message and a new leader to win back the middle of the country? Jose Aristimuño is a former deputy press secretary at the Democratic National Committee, and he joins us now. Jose, thanks for coming on tonight. So,
good to be with you.
Just to the election on Tuesday, nobody on the left, and honestly, few on the right, called this. The polls suggested a much closer race than the results indicated. Do you think there's any possibility that Russia might have been involved in that race, working on behalf of Karen Handel?
Look, the reality here, Tucker, is that Georgia was supposed to be won by Republicans by at least 20
points. That's a joke,
points.
Jose. Wait, you got to laugh, or else I think you're taking it seriously. Okay,
which is why I'm not answering your question. But look, back to my point is, Georgia was supposed to be won by Republicans by at least 20 points. It was won by Republicans by 4 points. Why? Because Republicans keep on losing their base. We are gaining momentum. We are going to win the House in 2018. I'm telling you. Remember, Georgia 6 wasn't supposed to even be competitive, and it was, because this is a referendum on the president. Okay. People are tired of this nonsense.
Okay, so it sounds, I mean, I guess, if I were a partisan, which I'm not really, but I would be pretty happy with your response, because what you seem to be saying is everything is fine, make no changes, we're doing great, we're going to win, when in fact, as you know, as a numbers matter, Karen Handel won a higher percentage of the vote than Donald Trump won in that same district in November. So actually you're moving in the wrong direction, but you don't see any need for a course correction at all?
Look, talking about change, talking about Nancy Pelosi, she's a great American, she's a great Democrat. Nancy Pelosi is not going anywhere. Nancy Pelosi is here to stay. At the same time, though, let me just say, Democrats across the country, we are recruiting young blood, new Democrats to be candidates so that they can run. Okay, and so they can impact solutions and look for solutions that real Americans are looking for. But she's not going anywhere.
What are they going to run on? Oh, okay. Look, I'm not here to attack Nancy Pelosi. I feel sorry for Nancy Pelosi. My only point, I guess, would be that she lives in a very rarefied world. I mean, she represents a 100% urban district, one of the richest congressional districts in America. Yeah. That is also one of the most liberal districts. Trump won under 10% in her district. So the question is, can someone who represents a place like that appeal to the voters you need, who are not hard partisans, but sort of on the fence? But you're obviously not going to engage in this. So let me just ask you a question. Yeah. What should Democrats run on? Like, what's the message of the Democratic Party?
Well, really quickly, though, on Nancy Pelosi being out of touch because she's wealthy, and she is, our current President Donald Trump, is out of touch. You want to talk about a rich guy? It's Donald Trump. You want to talk a guy who has more money than all of us put together? That's the President of the United States. So that's
look, I'm not attacking, but you're kind of missing my point. I'm not attacking Pelosi for being rich, though it happens that she is. I'm merely saying that if you're trying to win over voters with a specific set of concerns, you want a leader who understands those concerns. And does she? And if she does, what are those concerns? Like, what are the Democrats going to run on? What's the message?
The Democrats are going to run on American values, okay? We need to create jobs, real jobs, okay? Real jobs, real jobs. We're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about real Americans, middle-class jobs, not this nonsense that we have a current president that all he's doing is trying to divide us. He's obsessed about the wall. We just learned that he now wants to put a solar panel on the wall. Give me a break. Let's talk about real issues.
So you're going to run against Trump again? Okay, so no, I mean, look, I know you don't like Trump. You guys ran a bunch of campaigns against Trump, didn't work. So let's get to what the message is, the Democratic message. You say it's jobs, number one, jobs, but not low jobs like middle-class jobs. That's one.
Absolutely. Middle-class jobs are important. We need immigration reform, real immigration reform. We're a nation of laws, but we're also a nation of immigrants. So whoever, look, we understand what the American people need, which is why we're going across the country.
Wait a second. Wait, I'm totally confused. You're running simultaneously on the idea you're going to create more jobs, but you want more low-wage, low-skilled people to move here.
Immigration
reform. How do those two work in tandem?
Sure.
You can call it what you want, but you're saying we need more immigrants, but we also need more jobs. If we have too few jobs, why would we import more immigrants?
Immigrants pay taxes. Immigrants, that we're talking about billions of dollars being injected into our economy, Tucker. More immigration, legal immigration, good immigration, expanding our immigration system is only going to help us and create more jobs. Look at the numbers.
So how, tell me, how will, actually, I'm familiar with the numbers. I don't think that you are. How will importing millions more poor people create more middle-class jobs? And where's that happened exactly?
All immigrants are not poor people. That is a stereotype. That's actually not true. A lot of immigrants are hardworking.
Well, actually, the majority of our immigrants, I'm not saying they're not hardworking. I'm just saying they're poor. The majority of our immigrants are poor. And so how will importing more of them create more jobs? How has that happened? Where has that happened? And how is it going to happen again?
Well, a few things. Number one, we know that a lot of immigrants, by the way, that are under the H-1B visas, which are too low, right? Too low of a number. They're engineers, they're scientists, they are coming to our country to study in the best university. And then you have the other immigrants who want to do jobs that a majority of Americans don't want to do in the first place.
But how is that creating jobs? I don't think you've thought this through, Jose. So I guess this may be the problem. You may be illustrating right now the problem. If you're going to have a message, a program, and say to voters, here's what I'm going to bring you if you elect me, you have to be able to explain it. So you're basically saying, we're going to bring you more jobs, but we're also going to bring you a lot more poor people, but somehow that's all going to work, but I'm not exactly sure how, and then throw in a bumper sticker or two and a slogan, but like, trust us? Don't you think you should think through exactly how you're going to create those jobs?
Immigration, more immigration, legal immigration into the system is going to create more jobs, more people that want jobs that Americans don't want. That is a fact. That is the truth.
But that's not creating more jobs. That's taking, as you just said, jobs that Americans don't want. I thought the idea was to create more middle-class jobs. How is going to bringing in like waves of new low-skilled workers? Yeah, but how does that work?
Why can't we do both?
Do you know? Have you thought this through at all? Man, that's why you guys keep losing. Because you say dumb things that don't make any sense. I mean, look, I'm not against immigration. I'm totally for making middle-class jobs. I just don't know how they work together, and neither do you. Maybe you should figure it out.
It would be better.
And then you can explain to people, and then they'll support you.
It would be better if we had a president that was willing to work with the Democrats. That would be nice, but that's not happening. Look, we got a president that is being investigated, as you know, time and time again. I don't know if he'll make it to 2020. Right. What do you think?
Yeah, Trump's bad. All right, I don't know. Jose, I don't know. But even at this rate, even if he doesn't, Democrats will not be the beneficiary of it. Trump may be bad, but voters are in no mood to support Democrats over him. I've just noticed that. But
that's
whatever.
Not true.
Come back when you got that all figured out for me.
We're getting better.
Good luck, Jose. Well, after Tuesday's defeat, Democrats haven't just been criticizing the party's message, but questioning if they even have one.
We need a message. We don't have an infrastructure in our caucus that allows more voices to be heard.
I think we've been hyper confused over the course of the past 5 years.
I don't think people in the Beltway are realizing just how toxic the Democratic Party brand is in so many of the countries. This is a party that many of us grew up hearing. This is the party for the working class. And we've gotten away from that economic message.
So the question is, do Democrats have a message? Tim Ryan sounds like he may be onto something. And if they don't have a message, what should their message be? We're joined now by someone who's thought a lot about this. He is author and columnist Charles Krauthammer, who, by the way, has thought a lot about virtually everything. So, Charles, what should the message be that Democrats run on next time?
Well, the paradox is that one wing of the party, but really the base, has a message because it has an ideology. That's the Bernie Sanders wing. They actually have a coherent set of ideas. They want to create a government-run health care. They want government intervention, higher regulation, higher taxes, and open the borders. They want to create a European social democracy, a Germany in the U.S. It's a coherent idea. I think it's nuts. I think it's a terrible outcome, but it has appeal, obviously. He hung in there for 6 months against Hillary. Now, the problem is That's not a majority of the party. It's the strong base of the party. It's not a majority. The rest of the party, the Clinton wing, the part who supported her and who went for her, and who are the regulars, do not have a message, and that's the problem. And by message, I mean ideology, a coherent set of ideas. What they have constituencies. They appeal to blacks, to Hispanics,
right,
to young people, to women, but it's mostly single women, to LGBT. They have constituencies. It's a stitching together of constituencies, hoping that that will put them over 50%. Now, that's a strategy. It may work. It worked with Obama. He put together large elements of those constituencies, right, and he won twice. But the problem is it doesn't have an ideological and intellectual coherence. So when you say, what do you stand for, they can't give an answer. So what do? They invent this idea of diversity. So this is a party of diversity. Diversity is an adjective that describes the world as it is. It is not a political aspiration. It's not a goal everybody wants to head to. That's not what America is. America is a lot of things. Freedom, you could say if you're a Sanders, equality, a lot of other things. But diversity is a pretty pale and unappealing ideal, if it is one at all. And it's a phony, because it really is just an intellectual excuse for appealing one constituency at a time, and that's what they've been trying to do. And you can win sometimes with a charismatic candidate like Obama in 2008, or even in 12, but that's not a way for a party to survive.
Well, the problem also is if you organize your party around identity politics, at some point the component groups may realize they don't have anything in common. They have separate goals, and why wouldn't they go to war with each other at some point soon?
And they do. You know, and that's the problem. When you appeal, when you do the identity politics, when you appeal to groups based on what is their characteristic, you inevitably end up with them fighting over the spoils. That's one of the problems with affirmative action. Why should it be X and not Y? Why should it be newly arrived Hispanics and not white people who's, let's say a Polish immigrant whose parents might actually have fought in the Second World War? There's no way to judge, and you end up simply with scrambling for spoils. And that is one of the things that the Democrats suffer from.
That was the one good thing I always thought about Sanders, was he did not organize his campaign around that.
That's right.
And he had ideas, insane though they were, but it was unifying, not divisive.
It's essentially an anti-capitalist idea. You would have thought that it exists only in the English departments of some elite universities, which explains why Elizabeth Warren is sort of his acolyte. She's a perfect example, a Harvard professor. But that has a limited appeal, and it's sort of, socialism is not exactly the most successful idea of the last 2 centuries. So it's not a terribly good idea to run on it. But at least, as you point out, at least it hangs together. The other Democrats, the Pelosi Democrats, have no idea that hangs together.
That's totally right. Charles Krauthammer, thank you for joining us tonight. That was really interesting.
My pleasure.
Well, President Trump gave a stem winder in Iowa last night. He's the president of the United States. On the other networks, he wasn't there. They were covering Russia, of course, and Jared Kushner. They're obsessed with Trump, obviously. Why don't they cover him when he talks? Interesting question. Joe Concha is here next to answer it. Also, a professor at Trinity College is claiming victim status after he advocated the death of white people online. What is going on at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut? We'll have a report for you up next.
Work. But they built these studios. CNN. Whoop. Hey, the camera just went off. I can't imagine.
That was President Trump last night in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It was a long speech, more than an hour. It's a pretty interesting speech, actually. But unless you're watching this channel, you likely didn't see it. Producers over at CNN and MSNBC cut away pretty quickly. CNN covered Trump's speech for a mere 7 minutes, then went on to discuss Jared Kushner's security clearance. Bet you didn't know that was breaking news. And Jay Johnson's claim that, you guessed it, Vladimir Putin ordered cyber attacks in this country. MSNBC didn't show the speech at all. and instead dedicated more time to, brace yourselves, the alleged collusion between Trump and Putin. Joe Concha writes about media for The Hill, and he joins us tonight. So, Joe, MSNBC, I get, actually, they know who their audience is. That doesn't bother me. CNN's supposed to be a news channel, and they talk about Trump a lot, and here they have a chance to actually show Trump talking, but they cut away. What is that about?
When you say a lot, Tucker, boy, you hit the nail on the head. There was one snapshot back in May. It was a non-breaking news day, kind of like last night. MRC study showed that CNN talked about Trump 92% of the time from 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. And if you watch the network, and I watch it often because it's part of my job, that's about right. Probably somewhere between 85 and 92%. They're talking about Trump. So when you're so myopic on a particular person, in this case, the president, why wouldn't you cover him live to actually hear what he has to say, unless that unfiltered version of Trump doesn't allow for commentary, punditry, or maybe speculation around the latest bombshell that came via unnamed sources? So then we talk about the business end of this, right, of journalism. How did the ratings work out? Was this a good editorial decision by CNN and MSNBC not to cover this rally live as Fox did? I have the numbers in front of me. Fox more than quadrupled CNN's audience during live coverage at 8 p.m. Eastern last night. Total audience, Fox 3.3 million, CNN 821,000. Against MSNBC, Fox 3.3 million, MSNBC 1.53 million. Then people talk about the demographic. That's the younger audience that advertisers cover most. Fox 642,000, MSNBC 414,000, CNN 260,000. So was this a good choice? It appears not from a business perspective or an editorial perspective.
Well, it's not. I wish we could take credit for those numbers. It was Trump talking, not this show. But it's not really journalism what CNN is practicing anymore. It's advocacy. And again, that's okay. I think there's a role for advocacy. But why does the channel continue to brand itself as a news outlet?
I don't know how you sell that, right? You say suddenly for 37 years, we're in existence since 1980. You used to work for him way back when. You suddenly say, hey, the days of Bernard Shaw and Aaron Brown, those are gone, and we're just going to be now the opposition party instead. I don't know how you necessarily come out and be transparent about that. But you're right, and the numbers support that. A Harvard study, hardly a bastion of right-leaning conservatism, came out a couple weeks ago, showed that CNN, more than any other broadcast outlet, at least on cable, 93% of its stories are negative. That means out of 100 stories, only 7 stories on CNN are positive. And again, last night was newsworthy to cover because Trump had not done an interview on cable since May 13th, hadn't done one on broadcast news since May 11th with Lester Holt. Therefore, an unpredictable president and that sort of audience on a non-breaking news night, I think you got to cover that.
Well, you kind of would think that if you're going to call yourself a news network. I guess what bothers me is the dishonesty. And I don't follow a lot of media about media. I know that that's your job. Is CNN still regarded as a news channel by other news outlets? Do they cite CNN as a source for unbiased accounts of what happened in the world? Or is it seen as an advocacy platform?
I think there's a circle that goes between CNN, New York Times, and the Washington Post, and they like to quote each other a lot. But I think to objective observers, based on studies I've read as well, they're simply not seen as objective anymore. So, again, not just CNN, by the way, Tucker. We saw just today on MSNBC, you had an analyst on there, Elise Jordan, who used to work for the Bush administration, said that sticking up for Trump is like hugging a suicide bomber. You would think after the Kathy Griffin thing, you'd stop using ISIS analogies in these situations, but it seems like hyperbole is just going on both sides, and negativity has worked to a certain extent, but when the president is speaking, you probably should cover that. If not, you're going to pay for it in the ratings, and we certainly saw that last night.
Extremism, the pursuit of Trump, is no vice. That is their view. It's unbelievable. Joe, thank you for joining us.
Good to see you.
It was great. During
his rules, which say that those seeking admission into our country must be able to support themselves financially and should not use welfare for a period of at least 5 years.
Well, the usual suspects were shocked by that, of course, but what the president called for isn't a radical innovation. In fact, it aligns him perfectly with the policies of Clinton, Bill Clinton, that is. A 1996 federal law already bars immigrants from drawing welfare benefits for 5 years, but the Bush and Obama administration steadily increased the number of programs exempted from the law. Francisco Hernandez is an immigration attorney in the state of Texas, and he joins us tonight. So, Francisco, the argument in favor of immigration is that immigrants make the country better, they make it richer, they bring jobs. You can't simultaneously argue that and the United States has some obligation to give welfare to people it's never met before. Can you?
Well, Mr. Carlson, thank you for having me. But, you know, quite frankly, the misconception is that undocumented immigrants are receiving welfare. They are not. OK, that's just plain not true. Now, President Clinton did, in a hypocritical move, to get himself reelected, passed this 1996 statute. But the month after it was passed by executive order, he reversed it. OK, but there have been two presidents, Republican Obama, quite frankly, that have not reversed the executive order. But that's the law. President Trump is not doing anything that's not already within the law.
This is a verbal Vesuvius here. Let's back up a tiny bit. First of all, immigrants, legal and illegal, receive a whole host of welfare benefits from the U.S. government, including
undocumented. Do not.
Yes, they do actually. Yet
they don't receive Medicaid. They don't receive.
Actually, have you ever heard of emergency Medicaid?
It's not true.
It pays for. Actually, you're wrong. It pays for almost 100% of the emergency room.
No,
oh, it's true. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to debate a fact that I know to be certain with you and you don't know. Oh, no, there is a special fund, a federal fund, to pay those bills, and they go almost exclusively to illegal aliens. But
no, they
that's
don't.
not what the president was talking about.
Life-threatening.
That's
not what we're talking about. You're right.
All right. The president last night said immigrants shouldn't be getting federal benefits for 5 years. And I'm wondering, how is there an argument against that? How can you say to people around the world, come here and we'll pay you welfare benefits? That's kind of the opposite of what we would want, isn't it?
Well, if they're paying taxes, you know, there are a lot of U.S. citizens receiving welfare that don't pay any taxes. The question is, are they paying the ticket on the bus? If they're paying their fair share, there's nothing wrong with it. That's what we sign up for. But undocumented immigrants do not receive any.
So people come. Look, you just don't know what you're talking about. There's a fund called Emergency Medicaid. It's $2 billion a year, and it goes almost exclusively to illegal aliens. There's not an argument. It's actually been established, and you're making me frustrated because I know what I'm talking about and you don't. But that's not the point of this conversation.
Well, then I shouldn't frustrate you.
The point is, why would you invite people to this country?
We're not.
And then put them on welfare? Isn't the whole idea that people come here and they add to the society? You don't want to import people who are already dependent. Why would you do that?
We don't, Mr. Carlson. But you know what? What happened to the wall? This is a detraction from the wall. Undocumented immigrants do not receive Medicaid. It doesn't. If it is life-threatening, that is what the emergency government hospitals are supposed to do.
Whatever. Okay,
you can laugh.
Just ignorant on the subject. Okay, because it's better than getting mad. Let me just ask you the question. This is just too frustrating one last time, which is a philosophical question, and I think an important one. Why would you want to bring people voluntarily to your country? We don't owe them anything. It's a favor we're doing them to allow them to come here. Why would you want to bring people who are immediately dependent on welfare when they get here? Don't you want people who add something immediately to your country? Economically.
You're just down and determined to argue with me. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm telling you, that's the law already. There is no argument, but you just want to disagree with me on something because I proved to you that undocumented immigrants do not receive Medicaid, period. They do not.
Okay. There are two strains here. Undocumented aliens, illegal aliens, do receive the benefits I just described. Legal immigrants receive a panoply of welfare benefits, including food stamps, child care. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things exempted from this law. And the president's saying, you know what? Let's take those exemptions away and say, if you come here as an immigrant, thrive on your own. And I don't know why you would argue against that. And I doubt you do either.
So 21 years have passed, and all of these illegal benefits have been paid out, and nobody has trumped out the warning signs. I mean, come on, Mr. Carlson. This is really a detraction from what we really should be talking about is immigration reform. What President Trump
letting
promised.
in more people to go on welfare. You got
Where's
it.
the
We're
wall?
going to put you in charge of it, Francisco. You're being trusted.
Mr. Hannity and I both agreed to meet on the wall and start building the wall on the border. Let's go. You can come with us.
Well, I'll join you. Thank you, Francisco. Appreciate it. Well, China's annual dog meat festival begins this week in the southern city of Yulin. More than 10,000 dogs are killed there every year, hung on hooks and then consumed as food by Chinese who believe that dog meat somehow enhances male potency. The more painful the dog's death, the more powerful the meat is considered, so torturing the dogs is common. Some unknown number of them are once household pets, stolen to be sold at the festival. Now, this year, as in years past, there have been international protests against the event. The Chinese government has responded with a massive police presence there designed to shield the dog eating from public view. Reprehensible, you say? Of course it's reprehensible. But it's also clarifying. Our ruling class has embraced the idea of cultural relativism, the notion that you can't really say one civilization is better or worse than any other civilization. That's false, as this illustrates. Some cultures are impressive, others are backward. How can you tell the difference? Here's one way. The Chinese eat dogs. We let them sleep on the bed. Only one of these customs is disgusting and barbaric, and it's not ours. Remember that the next time someone tells you we're all the same, because we're not. Well, Trinity College in Connecticut shut down its entire campus for a day after one of its professors called white people inhuman and advocated for their violent demise. Scalise and 4 others were shot down on a baseball field outside D.C. The sociology professor at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, went on social media to applaud the violence. His name is Johnny Williams. He's a professor there. He linked to an article on Facebook that argued Congressman Scalise should have been left to bleed to death on the field. Here's part of what he wrote. Quote, "It is past time for the racially oppressed to do what people who believe themselves to be white," quotations around white, "will not do. Put an end to the vectors of their destructive mythology of whiteness and their white supremacy system." And then Williams added this, "Let them effing die." Now, he spelled it out. In a later post, Williams referred to white people as, quote, inhuman. Whoa, he still works there. Forced by news reports to respond to all this, the president of the college, Joanne Berger Sweeney, issued a statement saying the school will look into Williams's post, not saying he'll be fired for attacking an entire race or inciting violence or lunacy in general, but that the dean of the faculty will assess the situation and then, well, something will happen at some point. Oh, it's an unbelievable story, especially for me, since I went to Trinity, along with Jesse Waters and George Will and a lot of other reasonable people, though not all at the same time. The school has changed a lot in recent years, and to find out how much it's changed, I talked to a couple of current students who've taken classes from this professor, Professor Let Them Effing Die, Johnny Williams. They confirmed exactly what you'd suspect from the Facebook post we just read. Williams is an open bigot who singles out and torments kids based on their race. How could he not be? If you let a Klansman teach a college course, how would he treat the black kids? And how could Trinity not know any of this? Williams has been there for 21 years. Well, to find out more, I called the vice president at Trinity called Angela Schaefer. Schaefer explained that she knows of no review of Williams's behavior in class, presumably because the college doesn't want to hear the details of how he behaved in class, though again, you can imagine. When asked about the "let them effing die" line, Schaefer immediately defended Williams. Quote, "It was a hashtag, not a quote," she said. "A hashtag is used to be part of a conversation online." And what conversation would that be? About letting them effing die? Schaefer didn't explain. But for the record, Trinity used to be a pretty good school, never great, but there were solid history and English departments and some pretty smart kids who, for whatever reason, didn't get into Dartmouth, and so they went there. But then the left wrecked it, not in any especially inventive way, but with the usual combination of lower standards, frivolous classes, low-grade authoritarianism, not to mention the addition of semi-literate buffoons like Professor Johnny Williams. Trinity forgot what made it impressive in the first place, and within 20 years, it was over. Who'd want to go there now? Would you send your kids? Pretty depressing, but it's not uncommon. Maybe it happened to the school you went to. If so, our condolences to you. Justin Fortier is a student at Trinity, and he joins us now. So, Justin, the school didn't exactly apologize for what its professor wrote, "Let them effing die," and they seem to be defending it. That appears to be an appeal to violence. What do you think of that?
I think that the school didn't do enough to address this, and Professor Williams and Joanne Berger Sweeney both should have come out with a little bit more of an apology to kind of make this issue right. His hashtag was definitely inflammatory, unacceptable, and doesn't really represent a lot of the dialogue that goes on at Trinity.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. What do you think would have happened? Yeah, I mean, what do you think would have happened if a white professor had written "Let them effing die" about a black lawmaker who got shot? Do you think that, that the school would say, well, he's got a right to free speech and academic freedom and all that, we're going to think about it? Do you think?
Well, I think President Burger-Sweeney has actually taken her time with a lot of issues. I don't think she'd be very quick to act on that, but I think she was too slow to act on this in just kind of condemning the behavior. We kind of had to wait a full day to hear from that, and I think we also waited too long to hear from Professor Williams to kind of correct the issue and get the right details out. I mean, I've heard from a lot of students that Professor Williams paints with broad strokes in his class, and it'd be really nice to get some details behind this and to understand what he was saying, because right now the broad strokes are not making a good picture.
So painting with broad strokes means attacking entire groups of people. I mean, I've talked to kids in his class, and they say he'll attack groups of people based on their skin color, their income, where they live, and it makes a lot of the kids pretty unhappy. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I've heard that from my peers, that he makes basically assumptions based on what students are wearing and things like that. I think that's part of his class, and I think...
Free guarantee.